Uh-oh, guys, this is gonna be kind of a negative one, but fair, I think. Hey guys, it's Christine, also known as IvyWinter. Thank you for joining me for another Disney video. Today, I want to be brutally honest, talk about the 5 things that I dislike the most about Disney World. Realistically, as much as we all love Disney World and Disneyland and all of the parks, there are definitely cons to the experience, right? Let's just be realists in how we look at these parks. I have never been of the camp of let's just trash on it, because honestly, I think there's a point where I question some of the people out there on like Diz Twitter, you know who you are, who just complain about everything. Because to me, I kind of question, why do you keep going if there's an issue with everything? And I'm definitely in the camp of like, for the most part, Disney still gives me a great experience. Still have a lot of fun. I still find it worth the money. But I can also be realistic and say that there are some things that bother me about it that I think that could be better, improved. Always improvement for anything, right? So I want to talk about some of the things that I dislike the most about Disney World. Number 1 is the transportation. And not because I don't like the modes of transportation. I think that they're great. I think it's great that we have buses that are free, boats that are free, the monorail, the Skyliner, even Magical Express. And I don't want to be ungrateful for the fact that it is free transportation, right? Like, that is a huge savings to not have to spend your own money on a rental car or an Uber, a minivan, or whatever, for that to be the only way you'd be able to get to parks, right? So I'm not trying to take that for granted, but I have found that in more recent years that the transportation has become vastly more unreliable. Buses have taken far, far longer to arrive at resorts or even arrive at parks when you're waiting for them. It used to be that you would find a bus every, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. They do say every 20 minutes, right? That is like what they say on their website, that they run every 20 minutes. Which I would even think is fair if they followed that. But I've had too many experiences where I've been waiting. Maybe I'm trying to get back to the resort midday. Maybe I'm trying to hop to a different park. And I have been waiting 30, 40, 45 minutes for a bus. To the point that sometimes I've given up and just taken a cab because it just becomes too much of a time waste waiting for the bus. And that is something that used to be few and far between maybe 10 years ago. And now I'm finding that it's very, very common. I see that complaint coming up from a lot of different people. I don't know if it's a matter of like not a big enough fleet, not enough drivers. I can't pretend that I know the ins and outs of the operations of the bus lines, but I think guests are definitely feeling it a bit more. On that side also, the monorail really needs a redo. And I understand that they are hesitant to shut everything down, but now that you have the Skyliner open, which I think is phenomenal, and on the flip side of transportation that I love, I think the Skyliner is great. I think it is time to just do a massive refurb, and not just refurbing the inside of the trains, but like, we need to get newer trains. We need to get better tracks. We need to stop the breakdowns that are so consistently happening that I fear even getting on the monorail, because I feel like I'm just going to get stuck. And I've seen it happen when I've been at the parks. There was one time that I was waiting to transfer to Magic Kingdom, and I was waiting to transfer to Epcot, and we heard that the monorail was stuck on the way out of Epcot. And they made everyone go down. They had to run these last minute buses from the Ticket and Transportation Center, which they never do. So we were able to get on buses. They were able to kind of like figure it out. And I remember being on the bus and looking up at the monorail track, and there was that stuck monorail. It was still there, even all this time later when I was taking a bus to Epcot. So, I don't know, like I think it's been happening a little too much lately. And I just think that they have to just suck it up, shut down the monorail, and do what they need to do to get it working in the way that it should be. Number 2, quick service options. I dislike most of the quick service options. I think there are some that are really fantastic. Obviously, Satu'li's Canteen is great. Oh gosh, I always forget the name of the new one in Galaxy's Edge. The docking bay is actually really good as well. I feel like they're starting to learn how to make them good, but I feel like it's taken a little too long to get there. Most quick services are not great. I would say most of the Magic Kingdom, I wouldn't even bother. The quick services in Epcot are okay. Hollywood Studios is really a no for me. I'm not a fan of a lot of the quick services there either. I just think that, like, I get that they have like these basic chicken nuggets and burgers and whatever menus for the quick service because that's where a lot of people are gonna go and people just want what they know, and that's fine. It's not so much even about the menu. I just think the food is kind of okay at most of them, you know? I don't think it's all that great. And then there's a fair share of places where I can find a good meal, like Columbia Harbor House, their salmon's actually pretty good. And I like that they have a little bit of a different choice there, but you know, I would rather go to the Docking Bay. I'd rather go to Satu'li Canteen because those are very different menus and they're really delicious and really filling. And I don't know, I'm not a fan of the chicken sandwiches because, you know, I can't eat a burger, allergic, but chicken sandwiches and the french fries, it's all okay. It's not even like delicious fast food. It's just fine. It's just fuel to keep going, which I guess in some cases is fine. But I've never been a big fan of the quick service options. Like I said, they're starting to get better as they're creating these newer lands, but you know, they still have a ways to go. Number 3 thing I dislike about Disney is the construction. There's definitely a part of me that tells myself, Christine, this construction is all worth it. And we've seen it. In the end, it usually is, right? You get the construction walls come down for Galaxy's Edge, for Pandora, and you go, wow, this is an amazing experience. So I know that the end goal is worth it, but it's tough with things like Epcot, where that is, like, I'm so excited for the future of Epcot, but it's tough to walk around there right now. You feel like everything's blocked off. You feel like the pathways are weird. You feel like there's just so much of like what you would normally see and the aesthetic of it all that's kind of ruined by construction walls. And again, I understand and I have patience usually with this, but I still hate it. I mean, I think I can dislike seeing construction walls. I can dislike that kind of intruding into the magic of the place. But, you know, I understand that it needs to happen for progress and for us to have something really, really cool at the end of it. I think Epcot has been particularly tough because there's just been so much of it. Whereas Hollywood Studios felt that way before, right? Like, it felt like Hollywood Studios was nothing but construction, and now I'm starting to feel that way about Epcot. But, you know, hopefully in a couple of years, it'll all be gone. We can turn around and say, look at how amazing this is. But right now, it's kind of a bummer. You know, I definitely get the people who go when castles are being worked on. Like, happened to me with Disneyland twice, and I was like, oh, I can't even, like, see the castle. You know, it's still a bummer. You know, I'm fortunate enough that I get to go enough that that's not my only experience. But I can imagine for someone going for the first and maybe only time, running into that kind of sucks. But, you know, again, I get the point of it. I'm excited for what's coming, but it's a bummer. The number 4 thing that I dislike about Disney is how tired it makes you. And I would consider myself a really active person. You know, I have been running and training for the 5K, and in general, I like to run, I lift weights. I actually, before recording this, just got back from hiking. Like, I'm a pretty active person. So looking at it even from that lens and thinking about, oh my gosh, when you get towards the end of the week, like 4 days in, you start to get back to the hotel and your legs are like cramping, your feet feel like crap, like you can't wait to pull your shoes off. It is so tiring. And that's coming from someone, again, who's super active. I can't even imagine someone who might have trouble getting around, maybe someone who's a bit older, maybe trying to get around with like younger kids in tow, pushing that stroller all day. You know, I don't have kids yet, so don't know that life yet, but I understand that like that's just a part of the touring. And it's also probably because I'm a very go, go, go person. But oh my gosh, I just hate how physically exhausted I feel. I always say Disney is the vacation that you need another vacation from. You need a vacation from your vacation, because it is so tiring. More so, you know, I've traveled to different cities, both in the country, outside of the country, and I still feel like I'm never as tired as I am after a week in Disney. I wish there was a way around that. I mean, I guess taking more breaks definitely helps, and I've done that, but I feel like, especially if you're there for like 5 days or more, forget it. Your body is just a puddle of nothing by the end of that whole trip. So tiring, and I can honestly see why that turns some people off from vacationing there, because a lot of people in their head, they're like, well, vacation is relaxing, and that the last thing I want to do is feel like I just ran a marathon every day. So I get it. And the last thing I dislike about Disney World isn't really Disney World's fault, it's just where it's located. But 90% of the year, I really dislike the weather. I love going. I found that December's awesome, January, February, March. April and on is just like, just toss a coin for how your weather is going to be. Is it going to rain? Is it not? Is it going to pour? Is it going to be thunderstorms? Will it rain for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, all day? Is it then going to break into unbearable humidity and you just feel like you're going to die? Like, this is the woes of Florida more than anything else. But it can be really, really tough. I feel like touring in the summer, not even summer, September, October, don't be fooled. Just because it's fall does not mean that it doesn't feel like 100 degrees sometimes in September. And it's tough. It can be dangerous in terms of like being hydrated and making sure you're resting enough and all of that. I often feel disgusting after those long days. And then it can also be really tough in the rain, right? Especially depending on what park you're in. Now, I always talk about that. I do love taking advantage of the rain because most people freak out and run away, and I just try to wear my raincoat. But even my raincoat is not perfect. Like, if I'm standing outside and spending most of my time in pouring rain for hours, it's gonna get soaked eventually. It can't keep everything away. And it's still uncomfortable, and it still brings down rides, right? And it's hard, especially if there's lightning in the area. That brings down rides more than rain ever will. So it can be tough to plan around that, and it can be tough to deal with how much the weather fluctuates. That's why I prefer the winter time, because I feel like the fluctuations are less crazy. You don't have as much rain during those times of year, and I'd rather throw on a jacket and pants at night and still just like not have to deal with humidity and pouring rain and all of that not fun stuff. So not really a knock on Disney World, but you know, it does exist there, so I feel like it's still kind of a takeaway from it. So those are 5 things that I dislike about Disney World, and I'd love for you to be honest. What do you dislike? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, then like it. If you like me, you should subscribe. I make videos every single week. Going through a whole bunch of requests recently. Been really, really fun doing that. And then I have a trip coming up really soon in 49 days. As of recording this, so real soon. So we'll be having more vlogs, maybe a live stream or 2 from the parks. We shall see. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great rest of the day.